Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Third Man Cricket Podcast. This is episode number 40, and we are down here doing a review of the second Test match held between India and Australia, um, which pretty much ended in 2.5 days in Delhi, like it ended in Nagpur. So much for the build-up and excitement for the Test series, but in the end, it's the home side that has proved to be dominating in these conditions over the Aussies and virtually finished both the test matches in the space of the time where it would take a test match to finish. I've got my friend Ravi as well over here. And so during the course of this episode, we're just going to finally dissect how the second test match went at the Firozshah Kotla / Arun Jaitley Stadium at Delhi. And we'll also do a quick preview of the third test match that's coming up at the Holkar Stadium in Indore. So over to you, Ravi. What are your thoughts about how the game went at the Kotla? Pretty much mirrored that of Nagpur as far as the time span was concerned, but we saw a bit of fight from Australia than we saw in Nagpur. But at the end of the day, nothing changed as far as the result was concerned.
Hello, Vaya. Yes, absolutely right. Of course, when we look at the time frame, yeah, 2.5 days, that's all it took. But nonetheless, I think the first innings that was played by both teams, I think we pretty much had a very evenly poised game. Of course, the score line also suggests the same. But when we actually try to dissect it, there are a lot of ups and downs for both teams that really need to be discussed. Firstly, with Australia and their first innings, I think some excellent first innings performances. At 91 for one, right? I genuinely thought Australia will go beyond 350, but that spell of Ashwin and what he tried to do over there was just fantastic. I was also looking forward to Travis Head and how he'd really battle, but it was good to see him into the scheme of things. But sadly, genuinely didn't live up the hype. The dismal subcontinent record still continues, but there no one else that Australia also can actually look forward to, for that matter, due to all the injury woes and what's been happening with their unit at this point in time. The huge positive was Pete Hanscom. For he deserves all the credit for his terrific batting. Really loved the way he battled spin, because it's definitely not easy to face those two lethal spinners along with Akshar as well. Um, Shami did really well to clean up the tail. We look back in a year or two ago, right, wherein the tail of every other team was genuinely troubling um, India. But nonetheless, at this point in time, I think our seamers are doing quite good, and also spinners, also for that matter, on at home conditions to clean up the tail and not really give those extra 30 to 40 or 50 runs, which are very very critical or crucial at this point in time in Test cricket. Um, and of course, when we come to India's batting, the lesser spoken about KL is better. His it was a timid innings, there was nothing to really look forward to. His approach was, quite slow. He was not really understanding what exactly to be done, and so on and so forth, right? We can talk all day about how probably he doesn't deserve a place at this point in time. It's important for him also to genuinely get that space, and maybe go back to play to Karnataka, or no, I'm not really sure, but at this point in time needs a break for sure, and then get back in the mental frame of things, and then probably do what he's really good at. His technique, his fitness, everything is at top. It's just that probably he needs that mental block which needs to be removed, right? Probably similar to what Virat Kohli also went through. So nonetheless, Rohit and Virat looked set for some time, but really didn't go on to make those huge scores. Virat's dismissal was a bit disappointing. Touch and go, still not clear. You can't complain much, but at the same time, it was one of those dismissals. It was one of those innings, to be honest, wherein I really thought that Virat was looking very much set, a couple of beautiful boundaries, and I thought, okay, maybe we'll see a red ball 100 today, but nonetheless, it didn't really end well. At one point, 139 for seven. Then really came our stars, who are actually doing that a lot of talking with the bat too. we those can't be called a stale anymore, right? Like we Dinesh Karthik was also mentioning that they're pretty much middle order kind of a batsman who are excellent with technique, who know how to play those beautiful spin and really tackled Nathan Lyon very well. An amazing partnership, 115 odd runs. What we saw from Akshar Patel was just terrific, and with to be honest, I think he's my man of the match. Uh, but nonetheless, massive respect to Nathan Lyon. We had a very good first innings, right? Barely any lead or trail out there. And then let's talk about second innings. How Australia started was quite good. I remember talking to you by like a day two end of the day. What Australia did. I think we were about 65 for one, and then on a day three early morning we're at about 85 for two, and we thought, okay, chasing 250 would actually be tough on this wicket, right? But then what happened in the first session of day three was, the lesser talked about better, perhaps. Uh, One of the most foolish batting approach, to be honest. Like we can talk all day about how Kotla wicket always favors spin. We can talk all day about how India were like undefeated, say from 89 90. We've seen many second innings wherein all 10 wickets went to spinners, and probably this test was not any different, right? Um, Jadeja with a seven and Ashwin with his three. Critical scabs, to be honest. And we genuinely need to talk about how Australia approached batting. You can't spin all your way to glory. That only happens when you're on the bowling side. And what Australia did with all the sweeping and everything was very foolish. And uh, this needs to be talked about more. Like we can talk about baseball, right? Within baseball, you can talk about approaches of where you actually, which sections of the ground you're actually targeting. But at this point, when you're genuinely targeting only the third man or deep fine leg, and or just probably going on to sweep all the while, right? You're eventually going to get it. And Jadeja also made a very similar statement on those lines, wherein he was just telling, okay, ball straight, ball short. There's not much bounce enough, and okay, they may go for a boundary or two here and there, uh, but ultimately you'll get them. One ball would spin, one ball wouldn't. That's how it is, right? And I think I kind of made this comment previously as well, but I'd like to go on air and tell this. If 36 for 9 was so dismal, right? But at the same time losing 8 wickets for 28 runs with that kind of a batting approach, it's not like there's some unplayable spin bowling. It was there, but of course you pretty much dug up your grave. It's like inviting trouble. It's pretty much saying, okay, we don't really expect to do anything more. We're happy with the one run lead or whatever that we have pretty much in there. Okay, let's just go sweep ourselves to glory. Losing eight wickets for 28 runs is very foolish, and Australia really need to go back, look at the mirror, watch those highlights 100 times, and say, okay, this is not how to play Test cricket in India in subcontinent conditions. No surprise, all 10 wickets go to spinners, and then we see a very positive approach from India when it came to chasing down the score of 118. um, what I really loved watching was Srikar Bharat and his cover drives. Virat Kohli looked fluid in his 20. Rohit Sharma looked very nice, but that was a very dismal run out. Wherein, okay, it was his wrong call and he pretty much sacrificed this wicket. Good to see Cheteshwar Pujara in his 100th test, not out on 31. And I don't want to end this with KL Rahul's one, but it is what it is. We should see Shubman Gill back in the frame, opening for India, hopefully in the third test, and then KL going back to those nets, going back to maybe even domestic cricket, which is not around for some time for now. You know, and then really, really getting back into the right frame mindset, and then coming back to play for India. Overall, I'm really happy for Srikar Bharat as well. That's about it from my end on the review, largely upon Bhaiya. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you, Ravi, for summing up that test match from your end, and I couldn't agree more. And things were pretty even Stevens at the end of day two, like you mentioned. And in fact, Australia would have believed that they have their noses a bit in front, not by much, especially with the kind of aggressive approach we saw from Travis Head and Marnus Labuschagne in the last 10 overs of that day. And I think that was the only period when India looked unassured. Maybe they were just recovering and happy that they came back from that position of 144-7. and then cut down Australia's lead to only one, where at one point they must have been harboring the ambitions of having a lead of close to 80 to 100 runs. So I think the bowlers were just recovering from that thing, and somehow they lost their plans, and Australia cashed in. And then, like you mentioned, on the third morning, there they swept themselves out of the game, and created virtual harakiri for themselves, and now are literally caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, basically, because in Nagpur we saw a bit of a conservative approach where they were trying to defend, and then suddenly play a spurt of shots, uh, and they decided to go to the other extreme here in Delhi and sort of panicked once the likes of Steven Smith and Labuschagne were dismissed on that third morning. The rest of them became walking wickets. And I think the most telling blow in that innings was the ugly manner in which their captain got out on the first ball that he faced. There was no way in the wide world that he was going to connect with that ugly kind of hoik. And that sort of represents what is going on in their minds as of now. And it was also very surprising to see Australia field a three um, spin attack, probably the only time they must have done in the last 20 years or so here in the subcontinent, which was surprising to say the least. But I think their strategy played right into India's hands, and this is the side which is close to invincible at home, and they're not going to let you off the hook once they have your number. Again, kudos to the spinners. I think great amount of appreciation needs to be given to R. Ashwin as well, who I think has Steven Smith's and Labuschagne's number at this point of time. And in the preview also, we mentioned how Australia's hopes of doing well in the series hinge on how these two key batsmen play at number 3 and 4 for them. And I think Ashwin has got into their head. If you saw in the first innings, he beat Marners on the inside edge with the one that came in, and then got Steven Smith caught behind with the other one. Uh, no one speaks of the catch that K.S. Bharat took to dismiss Steven Smith in the first innings, but it was high class wicket keeping at the end of the day. And then in the second innings, you saw while all the off spinners were bowling around the wicket, and this has been the norm in this series, Ashwin, Lyon, and Todd Murphy. Ashwin recovered from that bit of, you know, off session that he had on second evening, and on third morning, you could see that Rohit Sharma, Rahul Dravid, and the team management having focused discussion with the spinners that you should stick to your plan and let them do whatever they want to do. Even after that, if they come out on top, then you got to doff your hat off to them. So I think they came back with a relaxed plan on the third morning. And if you see Ashwin very cleverly switched to over the wicket on that third morning, and we never see Steven Smith play such kind of a sweep shot when he's not fully set. And once that happened, the floodgates opened. Marnus played to a delivery that he should have been forward rather than being back. And such is the relentless accuracy of the spinners that if you don't trust your defense at the end of the day, they are soon going to get you with one of the balls having your name on it. I mean, somebody like Alex Carey needs to be told that you're far better player than going out and playing a reverse sweep or a sweep every other delivery. You got to trust your defense, and you can only play a sweep shot once you're set. We saw the likes of Matthew Hayden sweeping India so well in that 2001 series, but because he had that technique, he trusted his defense as well. You just cannot depend on defense. You have to depend on your footwork as well. Have a mix of things. Trust your defense and then attack when needed. So that's going to be the mantra for them. But I see that it's going to be a difficult phase for them in the winning test matches. Uh, and from an Indian point of view, I think we are blessed to have those three spinners, batting so well for us in these conditions. And there is a joke going around that our batting lineup currently starts after number 5. So they are proving themselves to be very, very handy. If they don't get you with the ball, they get you with the bat. And like you mentioned, Akshar Patel has primarily played like a batsman in the series so far. And when you have three spinners, one of them definitely gets under bowled. And when the first two are Ashwin and Jadeja, then you're seldom going to get an opportunity with taking wickets. And I think Virat Kohli looked very assured in that first innings. I think he looked best from his end so far in this series and was very assured with his footwork and was really determined. But for that umpiring decision, which was touch and go, and basically once there is no conclusive evidence, you know, uh, it all depends on the on-field decision, and that's how the third umpire went by that, and that was fair play in my book in that regard. But if that had not happened, maybe you would have gone on to get something big. But that is definitely one thing that India would want more out of their top order going forward. Um, so I think all in all, a typical Indian Test match where the opposition, played right into their hands and was done and dusted. And now they have retained the Border Gavaskar Trophy. I think the last time Australia won the trophy or retained was in 2014, 2015. So it's going to be a decade almost that they have not been able to secure that trophy. Two times India have beaten them at home and away, so you can't complain much from that angle and say that one side has been dominating in home conditions. So what do we have to look forward to in the Indore Test match? Australia are definitely battered and bruised, and I think it's already showing that it's proving to be a long enough tour for them. Their captain has gone away home, albeit for reasons other than cricket, to be with his ill mother. Our wishes, thoughts, and prayers are with Pat and his family, and hope his mother recovers sooner rather than later. David Warner was struck a blow, so he's out of the tour and will not be playing the remaining test matches. Aston Agar has been sent back home to play domestic cricket. That's a curious case of Aston Agar when he was not, fed enough, or uh, it was not prudent enough to play him in the test matches. It's basically insulting for a player to get selected and then see somebody being flown right from down under and playing a game ahead of him. Nothing against Koneman, but he did a good holding job in that test match, providing that vital left arm angle. So it remains to be seen what is the kind of 11 they go with. I think Cam Green and Mitchell Stark are fit enough. So I think um, you will see the likes of Travis Head opening again with Usman Khwaja, who was also very good in that first innings with his 81. And I see Matt Renshaw being dropped, and then Cam Green slotting into the number 6 position and can act as the second seamer behind Mitchell Stark, who will ideally replace Pat Cummins. And I think they will continue with the three spinners, knowing how spin friendly the Indore wicket can also be. And this will be a red soil wicket as opposed to a black soil wicket in Delhi. So you can expect more turn and bounce on this kind of a wicket. And I think their batting will need to step up and play well in that first innings. Otherwise, there is no way that they can challenge this Indian team in these conditions. They have to score a minimum of 300 to 350 runs, and the onus lies on Smith and Labuschagne to guide them. I think they need to play their natural game rather than come out ultra aggressive, and have that kind of mindset. Trust their methods that they have worked for themselves. Steven Smith can do well to see his 2017 heroics, and take a leaf out of that book. And whereas India is concerned, I think in the top order, Rohit Sharma has been their best batsman. If you see the top six, he's looked very assured. In the first innings, he miscalculated and misjudged the length from Nathan Lyon and was in a hurry to finish the match in the second innings, which was the right approach on that kind of pitch. And like you mentioned, KL Rahul has become a topic of national discussion, and I think he's got his fair amount of chances, and it's absolutely prudent that Shubman Gill, who is in red hot form, plays ahead of him. And that is the only change I see in this test match. And I think the biggest positive for India would be if they're able to win the toss and bat first, then bat big, because the only thing that is left now for this team to gain confidence from is big runs from their top order. And you would want to see the likes of Kohli, Pujara, Shreyas also, who was a bit unlucky in this test match, come into the scheme of things. And like you mentioned, it was nice to see Srikar Bharat score those runs at the end of the test match. In the couple of innings prior to that, I think he has tried to play a game which is not natural to him. I think somewhere down the line in his mind, it's looking behind that he's replacing Rishabh Pant, so he's going to maintain that same kind of tempo that Pant used to play with, which might be pulling him down. So I think somebody would have had a chat with him that you got to go and play as Srikar Bharat would normally play and not play like Rishabh Pant. His keeping has been very impressive on this very, very difficult pitches. So I think that holds it in good stead. And the Indian seamers also have outbowled the Aussie seamers by a fair distance. Mohammad Shami and Siraj were absolutely fantastic in that first innings on the first day. Uh, and Siraj absolutely battered and bruised David Warner, which unfortunately led to his injury. And that helped Shami get the wickets from the other end. So all in all, I see a very engrossing test match in Indore. But again, you would favor India to go ahead 3-0, and maybe a whitewash can also be lurking around. And this is only Australia's opportunity over here to redeem themselves and at least try to make a match out of it. And from a viewer perspective, also you want to see competitive Test cricket. So let's see how it goes. But I'm backing India to again, win the next Test match and go 3-0 up. Those are my thoughts on the preview of the third Test, Ravi. And before we wrap up, we came to know about Jasprit Bumrah just today that it's highly unlikely that he's going to return anytime sooner to the cricketing field and maybe not even be fit for the WTC final. And they are maybe looking at the World Cup or maybe the Asia Cup. So that has also sent some alarm rings ringing as to how injuries are being managed at the NCA. And sometimes we know it's a gamut of different reasons why these things happen, because there is so much of competition for places in India that players feel that even if they're 80 to 90% fit, they can play, and they fear losing their spot to someone else who might come in their place and perform. But Jasprit Bumrah is, a different kettle of fish over here, one of our mainstays in the bowling department. So quickly, your thoughts on that situation, and how do you see that? Because I personally think that he should be able to play for India only once he is fully fit and proved himself in some domestic games as well.
With rust is written for sure, and we're paying, we're still paying for it, right? And good to see Roger Binney, the BCCI president, being very candid about it, how he really sees the situation. And there are a lot of fixing that needs to be done in terms of, especially the injury management, like you rightly told. Um, okay, so is it a big loss? Definitely. I mean, Bumrah's caliber, yeah, of course, but at the same time, I'm not really too worried. When it comes to our bowling strength and the kind of options that we have, at least when it comes to uh, the red ball cricket, at least for the few next few months. But at the same time, okay, the World Test Championship finale, rushing him back to England would naturally be a very big, very big move. And of course, I truly believe that there has to be tons of domestic cricket that he still needs to play to get back to cricket. But at the same time, just looking purely in terms of we are playing 11, where are we? How are we poised? I think we're okay. Of course, we're losing him, but at the same time, it's important to look beyond. Given Bumrah is uh, I don't know, not necessarily on the age part, but also totally depends on how injuries are managed going forward as well. Um, I won't make any harsh statement. All that I'll try to tell is that what we saw seen of Bumrah was amazing, but at the same time, once you hit 31, 32, it gets even more tougher to nurse these injuries. And I just hope, I don't want to make the statement, but I just hope we've seen the prime of Bumrah just pass through, right? And then if that is necessarily the case, then yeah, we are looking at the bench and saying, okay, probably you're up next. As harsh as it sounds, probably, it gets tougher with all the bowling action and the correction and the posture and everything on those lines, right? It's physics ultimately, and then there's a lot that the body also does to it. So I hope this is managed well, and at the same time, we have to look beyond Bumrah is my um, thought on this, but at the same time, it would be amazing if he gets back soon. And yeah, I have a very similar opinion on the Rishabh Pant scenario as well, sadly, because we were still talking about 2024 for both of them, perhaps. So that's extremely sad, and I hope Bumrah has enough time to kind of come, prep up, and then be ready for the 50-over World Cup.
Sure.
So that's pretty much it from our end, and thanks for tuning in. Uh, and hopefully we'll do another review of the third test, and hope it's going to be 3-0 then. That's about
Yep.
it. Thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you, everyone.